College soccer plays a big role when it comes to developing professional soccer players in America. Yes, you heard that right. Big. For the women's game, it can be considered essential and even highly respected, rightfully so. Now for the man's game, it can often be mocked or even looked down upon, which to a certain extent, I get it. But we also had many players that played in college make it not just to MLS, but even to the US national team and top leagues in Europe. However, with the growth of Major League Soccer, its academies, and even USL, is there still a place for college soccer in terms of helping players develop into becoming professional soccer players and possibly one day playing for the US men's national team? Let's talk about it. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And for a long time, I meant to cover this. I feel like we never really made a video in this channel dedicated to college soccer. So here it is. Actually, we're pretty much dedicating this entire week to college soccer. We have another video coming up later this week. And today we have a discussion, or maybe a bit of a debate actually, about men's college soccer with a very special guest. His name is Stuart Flaherty. He coached Ncaa D1, D2, D3 for multiple years, and he will be the guest of this video. We're even going to talk a little bit about Major League Soccer, USL in the process, agree, disagree, but obviously try to focus as much as we can in college soccer and what is its role in terms of player development in US soccer. Now later this week we're going to release a video going through the best US men's national team players to ever play in college, because we are not going to go through these names today, or maybe we'll mention a few here and there. And if you are watching this video and you played soccer in college, let us know in the comment section down below, where did you play? If you want to, right? Because it could be a bit of like an invasion of your privacy. But if you want to, let us know in the comment section down below. I'm just curious to how many of you played in college or even professionally. And don't forget to drop a like in this video if you haven't already. I will not be asking during the debate/interview. So just do that right now. Okay? Let's begin. Okay, everyone, today we have a topic here at the channel that surprisingly I've never covered before. I've talked about youth development. I've talked about MLS academies, Major League Soccer, USL, I think even UPSL at some point, US men's national team, so much, but we never talked about college soccer. And we've had US men's national team players, multiple, that played in college before becoming a professional player. And it seemed like it was a topic that has been ignored for some reason, probably a fault of my own. And today I'm bringing an expert on this topic to talk about it. We're going to be discussing a lot of things when it comes to Ncaa, D1, D2. Stuart, thank you for taking the time. And how are you doing?
Thanks for having me, Filippo. I've listened to a lot of your debates, very much enjoy the channel, and do very much enjoy college and lower level soccer in the USA. So I enjoy this topic too.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because I even feel a bit guilty that I've never made, I should have made more than one video. This is the first time I've talked about it in streams, but I never made videos specifically dedicated to this topic, which people like it or not, it's pretty important in the structure of soccer in America, in sports in general, right? But we're talking about soccer. I mean, I don't have to get how important it is in football, basketball, and major sports in America. So before we even start, just so people know why I brought you specifically, I try to bring guests that know more than me in a specific topic. And you most certainly know more than me in this specific topic. So why don't you tell people why?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent, soccer's my life. You know, I spent a young part of my life trying to play professionally and failed at that. And then I've spent since trying to coach professionally, and I did manage that. But I guess the reason you very kindly saw me as a voice is I've spent 17 years in college soccer, all three NCAA divisions, Division III Bates College, which is Ncaa Elite Academic, Division II Felician, which is a little bit of a different demographic, lower academic, opening a door of opportunity to players and students who may need it, and then D1 Ivy League, which is pretty high level competitively and top of the tree academically. Another pretty significant part of my career was I'm currently coaching my 10th season of USL2 When I started, it was called the PDL. Now it's called USL2, which is a fusion of youth players, senior pros who played pro and dipped back down, and active college players. So I think I've seen, just about every part in between the top and the bottom of college soccer, and was also blessed to coach professionally for 2 years. George Ncaa opened the door for me at the Michigan Stars, and I took over that team season and won the Ncaa National Championship in 2022. Won 2 Ncaa Independent Cups, one as a head coach and one as an assistant. And that was good for me because it taught me a lot, and it made me realize I don't know a lot, but it also showed me that some of the things I've learned can work at the quote unquote top level when people are getting paid and jobs are on the line.
So Stuart, you also, throughout your years in college, are there any notable names or players that have gone professional soccer? Because that's important for this topic too.
Notable off the top of my head, I coached Wyatt Omsberg at USL2 at the Portland Phoenix. Wyatt is, I think, in his 7th season as an MLS player now. He's playing for the New England Revolution. I don't know how many starts, but I know he's played a handful of games this season. He's also played at the Chicago Fire and Minnesota United. Coached Aaron Schoenfeld, who played for me at the Portland Phoenix and was at Eastern Tennessee State University. Aaron actually moved over. Well, Aaron's a great story because Aaron had some, a real, I thought, rough road off the field and was drafted and released and tried out and released and really ran up against the wall of rejection for a couple of years before he had loaned to a USL Championship team where he set the season goals record for the league. Kind of blew up, and then he moved to Israel. He played in the Europa League with Maccabi Tel Aviv. He came back and he played for the Columbus Crew. So he had a pretty high-level career. Ncaa, I coached at the Phoenix. He was a Georgetown player, and he went and played on that Toronto team with Insigne and a few of the big-time Italians. I remember watching him score the winner against the New York City FC team with Frank Lampard upon it. I know we were very proud at the Phoenix.
Insigne, or you mean Giovinco? Giovinco, right?
Giovinco, and wasn't there? There was. I wish I'd researched it, but there was a pocket of 2 or 3 Italians, and one had just won the Euros.
Insigne is recent. Insigne was now.
Oh,
Giovinco,
right.
Giovinco was the one before COVID.
Could have been Giovinco.
Yeah. But Stuart, with all that, you mentioned a few names, but outside of also the players you've coached, we've had many U.S. national team players that came out of college soccer, right? That have played. Some really, really, really big notable names. And I think the best way to start this question here is this: can college soccer in America actually play a role for professional development, right? If we do everything right here, which we don't nowadays, obviously. By we don't, I mean like all the way down from much younger ages than college. I'm not even talking about college. Way before that, if we do everything right, can college soccer play a role? And how would that role be? Because here's the way I see it, and you tell me what's right or wrong about this. In many countries in the world, college-age players are seen as prospects, but very often in soccer, unlike some sports here in America, they're already in a professional team. In college, age 18, there's still players that are playing also for B teams and even lower divisions that later on stand out, and that could be how we see college as like a lower division. How would it play a role in the U.S.? Because it clearly does right now. It clearly does. But if we get everything right, can it play a role? Can it actually be something important?
It does, but you have to accept that the wording you just used, play a role. When people argue this, they argue through the lens of they want it to do everything, which is silly. It plays a role. It's a bridge. The way I frame it very often, and I do this recruiting to college and USL2 teams, is if you looked at the professional game in America as big-time D1 college football, and you look at college football as JUCO, you will start to get a lens that would be accurate. JUCO doesn't create football players, but JUCO will take in football players, smooth out rough edges, add aspects to their game, add maybe physical or emotional maturity, and help them build a bridge between a place that they are today and the place they want to go to, which they can't right now. And right now is the issue. Because, let's say Christian Pulisic, he didn't help or harm D1 college soccer. D1 college soccer didn't help or harm him. That's two different universes, and no one's pretending that he needs to go to college or any of that. But Wyatt Omsberg needed it. Wyatt Omsberg at 18-year-old had 0 professional opportunities. Wyatt Omsberg at 18 years old was in his first year playing centre-back because he was off a position change. He was probably 20 pounds of muscle lighter than he was when he was a first-round draft pick 4 years later. And if Wyatt Omsberg was in England, the reality that no one wants to talk about is he could have ended up working in a factory, having not finished high school because he was in pro academies, and he'd never kick a ball again. So what the college game has done for Wyatt, it is added in a bridge of time where he's got himself a degree, which is a nice safety net. He developed himself as a player. He speaks very highly of Chad Riley and the aspects of reading the game. He speaks very highly of his coach, Brian Plotkin, who's at Army now and who was a Chicago Fire veteran, in terms of how they sort of polished off the roof edges. And I was Wyatt's youth coach, and I've got no problem knowing that I taught him some things, and then they went and added on top of that things I didn't teach. If you take the college aspect out of Wyatt's life, he might be like working an office job, having never played pro soccer. And what people need to realize when they aggressively push back against college soccer is that's not a good thing. Because if you take JUCO football away, I mean, I understand Patrick Mahomes didn't need JUCO. Aaron Rodgers did. Aaron Rodgers, as a high school senior, was not ready to play big-time college football. So if there was no JUCO and it was do it now or do nothing, that might be the end of his road. There would be no Boot Community College. There would be no Cal 2 years later. 2 years later and now can be the same thing if you have the emotional discipline. And ultimately, there'd be no Green Bay Packers. And if you take college soccer away, there is absolutely a small percentage of players in this world that wouldn't be impacted by it. They'd sign their pro contracts anywhere. They'd go through their loans anywhere. They'd do all their work in the professional system. But every single year we have drafted players who without college soccer might have just fell away. I mean, every MLS roster's got a college soccer product on it. That's actually a fact. I even scrolled through and checked. And then the argument back is like, well, it's different now. So because I was talking to you, I just looked through the last 3 drafts. We've got Spicer at Toronto, 36 MLS games, Trinidad International. We've got Yannick Bright, started in the MLS with Messi, couldn't get a pro opportunity in Italy, built the bridge between his youth career where he was released and his pro career by going to the University of New Hampshire. Same story for Moise Bombito, who Jesse Marsh has flat out said the Canadian system missed. He ends up at UNH. Now he plays in League One with Nice via MLS. We've got Duncan Maguire, a full USA international. We've got Patrick Agimang, an MLS All-Star with 5 USA goals. Austin, 50-plus MLS games. Ben Bender, Lucas Bartles, and the goalkeeper shooter with 70 MLS games. So these are guys that they needed a bridge between youth and being able to jump in the pro game, and college soccer was that bridge. And we need to support it and stop pretending it's a debate. I watched Middlesbrough v Norwich in March, and Josh Sargent's on one team and Aidan Morris is on the other team. Josh Sargent didn't need the college system. He got opportunities in Germany. He made it good for him. Aidan Morris did need it. Like, we don't like one and not the other. Borough won 3-1, by the way, up the Borough. But like, they can both exist. Why would we want to delete a pathway? The big weakness for me nowadays, and it is a weakness, is when I moved over here in the mid-2000s, America loved an underdog. Loved an underdog story. Loved someone who had to grind. Loved someone who'd been rejected and keep going. Loved someone who the pro game slammed in their face and they went another direction and they come back and succeed. And now we hate it. Now we're obsessed with this perfect cookie-cutter pathway to play age group, maybe a little bit of MLS Next Pro, which is more protected than your average pro league, and then we just go into the pro game. We want to talk about Harry Kane at Tottenham and Bayern. We don't want to talk about his 4 loans into the second tier when he was at the college ages, when he wasn't even good. We want to talk about Jordan Pickford in the Euros. We don't want to talk about him playing in the English 4th tier on loan when you'd never heard his name, because there was things he needed to develop that he wasn't good enough to do at the team he was, and that loan was the bridge. That's all college soccer's doing. It's not replacing anything.
I have a question for you, because this is interesting. You talked about some world-class players right there, like Harry Kane, that had to play a few years, a few seasons in lower divisions until they actually developed and became the players that they
Yes.
that he now is, for example. And he's not the only one. I mean,
And just
if you
for the
go,
record, 4 separate loans for Kane between the ages of 18 and 20.
I mean, N'Golo Kante, if I'm not mistaken, was playing the second division of France till he was 22 or 23, something like that. And
Yes.
that's one of the best midfielders we've seen in modern soccer, right?
Yeah.
Won a World Cup, won the Premier League with Leicester, things you wouldn't even imagine. And he did even with Chelsea after. So with these other countries, it seems like the lower division clubs absorb the role that college soccer takes care of in the US to a certain extent, right? USL does as well.
Partially, yes.
Partially, yes. So college soccer, if the US has the right structure in place with maybe an open pyramid, more professional clubs, soccer being more accessible because it isn't at younger ages, does college soccer still have a role in that, and where would it be? Would it be the
Yes,
same exact?
but only for a certain amount of kids. You know, only for the kids who need it. It should never be universally forced upon anyone. But there is always going to be kids who want something, aren't capable of getting what they want right now, and they need to go to college to do it. Now, personally, I believe a big mistake that was made by the MLS is they used to have their reserve teams in USL Championship. Truth be told, they used to get hammered. I remember watching live while the Red Bulls 2 got annihilated by Hartford. Were they a bad team? No. John Tolkien was in that team. They were a good team, but they were kids. And Hartford were grown professional men, and they battered them. Philly Union 2. I saw McGlynn and Aronson play at Philly Union 2. The fullback Harriel losing lots of games, but running into grown men and failing. A good thing. I think MLS didn't like the aesthetic of losing, so they created MLS Next Pro. So now you've got your own league that an MLS team can win, and you can market it, and everyone's got a winning, or at least half the league's got a winning.
They did MLS Next Pro to monetize it and to take down
not
USL.
only that, I think they didn't want to lose to the USL teams. But now I think what it was left with was a pro league that was a youth league.
I mean, MLS Next Pro is a way for them to dive into the pay-to-play market too. I know the MLS teams academies are free.
It is, but they're still trying to use it for their first teams. They are.
And they're
trying to use that.
But Stuart, there's a lot of MLS Next teams that are not within the MLS academies, and you get in it just by paying. There's a lot of teams that are not.
That's true at the youth level, right? I'm talking about the pro league right now, MLS Next Pro. And what they've done when they created the first 2 years where it was only MLS franchises, they've now brought in Chattanooga FC, and they've started to bring teams in to that league who are independent of MLS, who field 24 to 28-year-old, maybe even 30-year-old players, because that's a key aspect of development. It's applied development. If you can do a certain skill in your U18 MLS game that you can't do in a pro game, you're not developed yet. And now the applied part comes in, and I've seen kids who've succeeded at the MLS Next level with franchises like the Red Bulls, and they get to college and they're not ready for college. As much as people want to pretend it's no good level, I've seen U18 Red Bulls go in and hit the bench, and they can't cope with it. So now, yes, they have a track of development of ahead to be good enough for the college they're at. And then when they improve to that level, now we start talking about getting paid and signing contracts. Now, just because a very small percentage of people can make that step at 16, 17, 18 years old doesn't mean that most people are going to have to make it at 20, 21, and 22. But Stuart, I don't believe that role of college soccer is going away.
But back to your point about, like, you used Harry Kane as an example.
Yeah.
I think very often the reason why some players in the U.S. need to go to college for soccer specifically, I mean, if you're going to play in college because you want to keep playing soccer at a competitive level and get a degree, that's one thing. Now, if you want to go to college because you want to become a professional, I think it's more of a failure of the system that we have here in America rather than anything to do with college soccer. Because you talked about Harry Kane, and most professional players we can list many countries in Europe, South America. No one goes that route because there are enough professional clubs, lower divisions, which is where they will play already in a professional level year-round. And that's how they'll develop. And eventually, if they're good enough, they'll become good enough. It almost feels like college soccer in America is rescuing U.S. soccer from certain players being missed out due to its own failures. That's what it seems
I
like.
think it's a very negative perspective, and I think you'd be very surprised to know how many US college soccer recruiting consultancies have direct relationships with English professional league clubs and are in the academies every year to give an opportunity and a gateway for the kids who don't make it. Because by design, in professional soccer, and nobody wants to hear this, but it's true, most kids are supposed to not make it.
But those kids that go to college, do they make it after?
They could be, a lot of them come to America.
No, but do they
But
after become
some of
professional
them will
players?
get professional careers, yes, and some will fail.
And you don't think that they can get that also in lower division clubs if college didn't? I mean, obviously, it's much safer to go to college because you come out with a degree. If everything goes wrong, you get a degree, right? If unless you don't study, that's a different.
You're assuming a League One and a League Two club wants somebody released from the Premier League at 18 years old.
No, I'm not assuming that. I'm just saying that maybe sometimes the guy's not meant to be a professional player regardless. I'm not my overall point is not whether or not college gives players opportunities. That's not debatable. It obviously
Yeah.
does. My overall point is if we had the right structure in place, because why doesn't England have this?
England wants this really bad.
No, but why don't they have it?
I could put a link and I'll send it to you where Crystal Palace have invested millions of dollars into a program for the kids that leave their academy to get educational opportunities that will definitely be less than if they just came to America to this existing system. England wants a structure like college soccer where the failures, and there's always going to be failures, you can't wish away failures in professional sports,
Of course.
where they have a second and a third opportunity to either get back to they want to go or go a different direction in life. USA has got that right now. And you're wishing it away. And I think it's a dangerous game.
Well, wait, hold on. Wishing it away is not what I said. Let's go back to my question. My question wasn't wishing it away. My question was, is college soccer here kind of essentially hiding or helping with the failures of our own development? My point was, with England, you want to have it, you don't have it, and clearly you're still able to develop enough players through your own soccer pyramid or football pyramid. Yeah. My question wasn't to get rid. There's absolutely no logical argument to getting rid of college soccer. There's no logical argument to it. Even if we had the best development in the world, we were France right now, we were developing world-class players left and right, there is no logical argument to get rid of it. Because worst case scenario, a player that is good but not good enough to become a pro, he can still play competitively, get a degree. There's many benefits to it. My question was, if U.S. soccer had the right youth setup at the younger ages, not talking 18, I'm talking below 15, which we don't have it. And from a cultural perspective, it's a problem, and also the way it's structured here in the United States. Yeah. If we had that, would college soccer actually play a role for the professional level the way it does right now? Because it does right now.
I think it would play the same role. I think in your scenario there where everything improves, you're still going to have your top. They're going to be better than they are now. You're still going to have your mid. They're going to be better than they are now. You're still going to have your fringe guys, that's where college soccer enters the conversation. They'll be better than they are now. And you're still going to have a vast majority of rejects who are better than they are now. I actually don't think US soccer is as pivotal to development as the clubs, if you really want to make it. I think the English FA gets a lot of credit for work done by Manchester City and Liverpool and Arsenal and Chelsea and Middlesbrough and a bunch of clubs who year-round have extremely elite end coaching and environments that these kids leave and spend very small portions of time with the FA and the national team. Philly Union and FC Dallas, if you measure it by professionals produced and millions of dollars generated in transfers to Europe, it's arguable nobody's ever done a better job in American soccer developing players.
Well, but Stuart, then when we go that route, the federation has to facilitate things. The moment you help MLS monopolize things, the moment you help structure pay to play, which they did since the 90s, the moment you have territorial rights here in the United States, where a kid like Caden Clark, I'll use as an example, Minnesota didn't have an academy. So his dad had to go pay for him to go play at the Barcelona Residency Academy. Otherwise, he would just, what would he do there, right? They didn't have an academy. So the federation, when I talk about U.S. soccer, obviously MLS has to do what's best for MLS. They need to make money. If they think that's the best way, MLS has to do it. So that's why very often when we criticize MLS, I avoid blaming them because they have to look for themselves. The one that regulates it is the one that has to, hey, can't do that. Got to switch this. You can't just abandon the Open Cup. It's going to screw over smaller clubs. Because my point is, players like Clint Dempsey or Tim Ream, if you have a very good soccer pyramid, most of those players, if you have the right structure, most of those players wouldn't get to the college level. They would be taken by an academy. They would find them beforehand. Now, are there exceptions? Are there
But that's like saying Jamie Vardy would have came through an academy system.
But that's where I was getting. That's one player, right? One player in thousands and thousands. While in the U.S., you just named a lot of important players that had to go that route. You named many of them. And if we keep going, Jeff Cameron played what, 2 years, 3 years in college?
Right. Both players you just mentioned playing college, yeah.
Yeah, Jeff played 3 years. Dempsey, Ream. I'm not going to go to the players in the 90s because those obviously that was the route. But I'm talking about modern day. There's so many crucial players, and I mean, this is a player that's not spectacular or anything, but Daryl DK, for example, came out of college and he did well in the championship. Kyle Larin, Canadian. Kyle Larin's another example, and that's just adding to the names you have already mentioned, right? That are players that either were successful in MLS and some in Europe and in good leagues, good teams at a very high level. So my overall point is that, like, college is, I'm not advocating for getting rid of soccer in college. It should stay as it is. My question is, if things were done right here, how many national team players would actually come out of college soccer? And I know this is a question that is a little silly because you can say, well, we don't know, which is true. We don't know.
I don't think it, personally, honestly, I don't think it would have the impact you have, because a rising tide lifts all boats. And what you're talking about is a rising tide. You're not talking about all of a sudden no one ever gets rejected and no one has to go the college route and no one has to go on loan. All I think you're doing is those categories of pro which exist, you're just making them better players. That's what I think. You're never going to not have a population of players that are extremely talented, are either lacking physical or emotional maturity or have some flaws in their game, that won't need more time than everyone else to get to the end goal.
So, for example, in Orlando, if you don't go to the Orlando City Academy, you don't really have another option. The professional route, unless you go pay to play and then eventually go to college and try to get drafted or scouted or try to go overseas, which is much more complicated, right? Being an American going overseas, trying to become a pro, much more complicated. Your best route would probably be pay to play, find a club, go to college, and then try to get drafted or scouted by someone at a high level. My overall point is, if you have a better soccer infrastructure at the youth level, if there's better investment, more community driven, in an open pyramid where smaller investors can make more, you know this from England. You know how it is. Not every club has to be big. There are plenty of small clubs that, sure, they're not going to do the best job in terms of getting world-class players. Like you talked about, you listed like 20 teams in England, whatever, that do the job for the federation, essentially, of developing. But every small club plays a role in giving opportunity, access, and sometimes those clubs will find these players that they played in a smaller town or somewhere else. That happens in Brazil, happens in England. If you have that and you have other options, a lot of these players will have enough opportunities that then college soccer becomes an extra. It becomes something that one anomaly that people missed out, that one player that I don't know, scouts fail to see. And it'll happen. It'll always happen. And it'll always be there, right? It's a league where you get a lot of players that are 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, which are still prospect ages. They're still developing. And sometimes, an 18-year-old is good enough, but he's not mature enough. And maybe he needs those 2 or 3 years in college to mature as a person, not even as a player, but as a person, to go forward. The problem I see with the United States is that right now, I think it's not just that college soccer plays a role. I think almost like to a certain extent, we're even reliant on it. You talked about the amount of
I don't see it that way. I would argue it's disrespected. And I know firsthand that there is plenty of academies and MLS Next Pro staff who deliberately bias themselves against it as a marketing tool, because there might be a better player in college soccer. Like Orlando City would rather from a branding perspective, have a kid go from 18s to the 2 teams to the first team. It's a clean line. It's marketable. You know how Orlando dominate Florida. You live there. You know how many clubs wear their badge. There is something to that. Then Duncan
They suck
McGuire,
at development, but yeah, you're right.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into that, but like,
No, I'll say it for you.
I won't argue with you, yeah. But like, Duncan McGuire went to Creighton. I think we also make a big mistake that scouting and projection of who's going to make it and who isn't is accurate. And that is a very naive belief system. Because if you look at the NFL, they are as advanced as anybody could be. There is no complexity. There is one pipeline of players. They get the number 1 draft pick wrong almost every year. Go back the last 15 drafts, and you will find a better player than number 1 pick who plays the same position, drafted much lower. There was even a 5-year study done where they picked how many times the NFL picked the best player available, all their combine, all their scouting, all the millions of dollars. The best player available was taken less than 40% of the time in those drafts. So, like, you could make, I would agree with you on one thing. We see it through a different lens, but US soccer could do a much better job. I still think if it did a better job and the level of every player raised and there was more players, human error in scouting would still dictate that many people had to go on loan or go to college for people to see what was already there on a time delay.
No, I didn't think I wasn't talking even about the level going up. I was talking about just do you think let me change the question. Do you think soccer is accessible at the youth levels in the United States? It's more inclusive.
Is soccer as a game accessible? Yes. Are there economic difficulties when you're talking about getting from playing soccer for a team? There's millions of teams, to a team that can get you exposed to college, to a team that can get you exposed to the pro level. Absolutely. Is it as easy to fix as people think in a nation the size of Europe? That's a tough one. It's a tough one.
So you agree that it's more exclusive than inclusive in the US?
I don't know the balance, but the other thing I will say is where every youth team I ever coached, and I stopped youth, I wasn't really enjoying it. I stopped in about 2016. Every team I had a coach had 4 or 5 scholarship kids playing for free. And we were just a little old team in Maine. So I know that's a thing. I mean, I seriously doubt at this point in time any of the MLS academies that first group is paying. I'm sure some of them
No, MLS academies are free, but in a country you just said, the United States is the size of Europe that you just said.
Yeah.
And having 30 free academies is absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've got to be careful with how moral you go, because if we're going to make a real humanity-driven drive to fix this, we need to talk about healthcare and we need to talk about $70,000 a year for a degree. The country is a capitalist country. The country is an economically money-driven country, and the country is set up with very deep roots going back centuries that mean money gets you places other places can't. So, like, is that fixable in the USA? I don't think it's fixable. I think you just fight to make improvements.
I think that if you don't let one league monopolize the sport, which again, the creation of MLS Next Pro, I know you talked about how it's like because they were losing or whatever. Truly it's not. The MLS is trying to get its tentacles on every single part. I know, because even here in Orlando, they try to get into after-school programs like Orlando City. It failed.
Do you know that when I coached the Ncaa team, lots of Ncaa teams where they didn't happen or they were forced out of existence because of USL flexing the same power that MLS flexes on them?
Yeah,
So
that's the problem. But that's the problem. You in the US, you have a competition among leagues, not among clubs. That's a big problem. The Open Cup saga, what do you think of that?
I love the Open Cup.
No. What do you think of the saga of MLS just pulling out? Why did they do it?
Oh, it's a terrible idea, and I think it was done because the waters became so disingenuous. Like, what I mean by that is there used to be friendlies between colleges and pro teams, and then the college would probably win because they were going at it 110% and the pro teams going at it 60-70. And instead of a shared training exercise and a scouting exercise and a networking exercise, it just became nasty. And what I think Don Garber received was so much punching up from fans and from the USL that he just got nasty and petty and said, you know what, if that's how it is, if I am the devil, if the MLS, you don't need it, you don't like it, you don't want it, exist without it? Was it
Yeah,
emotional?
and I mean
Yeah, I think so.
that's
I
when
think
it
that
goes
was,
back to the federation. You can
yeah,
just remove its Division One sanction.
yeah. Well, that would be complex too. That might not go as well as you think. Because another thing I fully believe is if we go back in time 10 years and it goes differently and USL win the race with MLS, would USL be any better? I mean, we think so now, but
No, I don't. I think they're the same thing. Until you have an open pyramid, it doesn't matter which league is D1 or D2. Even if USL does promotion relegation within itself, it's the
yeah,
same thing. MLS can do that in a few years. They can do promotion relegation within MLS, and I'm sure they can. If they do that, they can probably get the owners on board at some point.
yeah. Do you
I
know
think
what?
they
Did you know a comparison I was talking about with once with a friend of mine, and I genuinely think this, and it's going to seem unrelated, but it is related. Is this whole push to just get rid of MLS? Right? It's not happening. Right? We can shout and scream and get mad.
I'm
And
not
cry
for that, by the way.
and
I'm not for
protest.
getting rid
I
of
know,
MLS.
but removing the D1 sanction, right? It's not happening. And England went through this with the royal family. We got to the point where royal family was unquestioned power, and then all of a sudden they're still in power, and everybody hates them. Well, instead of fighting against that, there was kind of an evolution of giving that power away while maintaining status. Now the prime minister runs the country, not the queen. Now the country is governed by the people, not the king. And over years and decades, that family managed to keep themselves at the top strategically, but they did it by giving power to those beneath. What we have in America now is all the power with MLS here. Everyone here getting mad and screaming about it. MLS will win that battle forever. There has to be more strategic debate. There has to be give and take. It has to be come at with those beneath from an angle where you're not just telling Don Garber and the MLS that they suck and you need to get rid of them. Instead of just rolling our eyes, we have to acknowledge that owners have invested 50 to hundreds of millions in these franchises under the promise of no relegation. And now, by the way, there is relegation. I'm not even sure you win that if they take it to court. Like, this discussion has to be had. On a legal level, it is the same as telling Jelly Jones there's pro rel in the NFL now. Is soccer different? Yes. But on a legal level, if the rich old man goes to court, it's exactly the same thing. Have you noticed how that's an area that no one ever wants to talk about? We just like get upset about all the other stuff. And there seems to be this belief that the more upset we get, the more things will change. I would argue in the current climate, with the current strategy of those not within MLS, nothing's changing ever. Big man wins. There has to be more interconnection. It's going to have to be a team effort. And there's going to have to some kind of integration of the USL clubs within MLS where it works for both ends. The problem is, and I firmly believe this, USL absolutely don't want to do that because that would be seen as defeat.
No, and let me just go back to college soccer here also, which is our main focal point here. Even though everything we talked about is
we've
connected.
gone way off. Sorry, brother.
But it's all connected. It's all connected, right? Because I mean, one relies on the other. In terms of college soccer here, have you ever seen some, besides the draft, of course, that MLS has, have you seen anything, or is there anything that you think MLS and even USL could do to cooperate and even help college soccer? Does college soccer even need help, or it's doing fine the way it is?
I think if those within college soccer swallowed their ego in some cases, because there is a portion of college soccer that wants to pretend they're just the same as pro soccer, and you're not, and it's disingenuous. And the MLS teams sort of didn't see literally everything else as a threat, and started to just see it as, okay, there's a pool of players, our youth academy, there's a pool of players abroad, there's a pool of players in college soccer, there's a pool of player here. That's the best case scenario for me. It doesn't have to be anything more than it is. It just has to be a place where players exist, developers players and developers men. And as long as every year you're pumping out proof of concept that you can get people from where they want to be in life to where they are, for me, that's fine. I don't understand, and people call it an American thing. It's not an American thing because it's exactly the same in England. It's a human ego thing. It's a human spirit thing. I don't understand the need for everything to be ranked and a hierarchy, and this is better than this, and that is better than that, and that's no good, and you're an idiot if you think that's good. Like, there's no debate that there is players who enter college not ready to be pro and leave getting paid. And usually the people that say there is a debate haven't been paid to play soccer ever in their lives. So it just is. It doesn't need to be better. It doesn't need to be worse. It just needs to exist as an incubator for people and humans to develop as men. And what it has that is underrated is if it doesn't work out, which again, I'll say this forever, in professional sports, it doesn't work out for most people. And that is exactly how it should be. If everybody makes it, it's not elite level sports. It's just communal sports. So those people that leave, they have a degree, they have relationships, they've moved up a level in their life, and they go in a different direction. That was me. I wanted to play pro. I didn't get to play pro. College did a lot for me. That's fine too, because there is people, and I only say England repeatedly because I'm from England, so I know what I've seen. People leave with massive mental health issues and no plan B. People leave uneducated because they didn't finish high school. People leave and work in factories because there's no other employment opportunities. We've had tragic tales of suicide and self-harm of people who, and that's why a huge point of emphasis within youth academies now is exit strategies and people for something to do when you don't make it from that massive jump. It's not U18 first team, it's U18, 3 to 5 years of complex development in most places, and then first team. And what you do in this window is important. And college is just, again, the words you said at the start of the podcast is what everybody needs to accept. It plays a role,
and
a life-changing role for some.
And I think last but not least, I have a question for you. I think that I know the answer to this one already. You kind of touched upon it throughout the video many times. And I think the answer is not much. That's what I think you're going to say. Is there anything that you would change within the current college soccer system?
Anything I would change? Yes. Could it be changed? Okay. I think it's going to be more complex than people think, because the obvious one is the calendar length. If a college team could have an 8-month season, would that be better? Yes. But here's another.
How many months is it now? Tell the viewers so they know too.
It usually starts in August and it ends in November, December. And then you'll have winter conditioning, which is the off season. And then there'll be a hybrid season in the spring. It's not that they do nothing, but they do more limited practices. They play games. But your average pro doesn't just play that calendar. I would argue more than 90% of college players who ever make it play a USL2 season. And a USL2
which is during the summer. The summer.
So that now you're not talking about 20 games in the fall. You're talking about 20 games in the fall. You're talking about 15 games in the summer, maybe more if you make a deep playoff run. And you're talking about 5 to 7 games in the spring. Now you're talking about 42 games a year. Now that's across different teams. And I would say with the top college programs, maybe that USL2 summer doesn't add much. But for lots, it does. I would argue outside of the top elite big dog colleges, going to a USL2 team, like my team here, Denton, we had Pato Faz come in. He is a 26-year-old striker. He played less than half the season for us. He signed for Union Omaha in the USL1 Pro, and he's already scored a goal for them. Did our college defenders learn from defending Pato for that month? Yes, they did. Did they learn things from defending Pato and develop in ways from defending Pato that they wouldn't have at college? Yes, they did. There is Brock Pope, who's a fifth-year SMU grad. You're talking about a 23, 24-year-old who mentally is trying to make it pro, who's coming like this every day. These are, to me, additions to the development of a player. So as long as a player is doing that summer season at a high level in the fall, they're in a pretty good spot. But if you're at a Stanford, if you're at a Georgetown, if you're at a Wake Forest, an 8-month extended season just within your college, that would be great. Now, complexity too. That's going to include the summer. The schools are closed for the summer. The dorms are closed for the summer. I was at Dartmouth, who has a ton of money, and we didn't have an athletic trainer at all our spring practices because the resources were spread so thin. So, what are we doing on a logistical level with these college teams when the dorms close and the schools shut? That's not as easy as people think. Because, let's say Indiana, I'm just naming random schools. Do they care about their soccer team like their basketball team? Probably not. Does, UConn care about the soccer team, basketball? Probably not. These football schools? Probably not. So are they going to invest that money to staff and house a 25-man roster and play through the summer? Don't know. Here's where I think this goes, Filippo, and I think this for multiple sports. I think you're going to see a world where varsity soccer in college stays as it is. I think you're going to see the club world, which is here now, go to here. And I think that club soccer will be privately funded professional. using the marketing brand of a college, which will draw more fans than a typical third-tier pro soccer club fan base. So I actually see varsity and club soccer over the years doing this, and this will be the professional version of club soccer. Like schools running on their academic calendar and playing pro soccer under the NCAA banner, no shot. So the calendar is going to be limited forever.
And you think like maybe USL clubs would join that?
Yeah, I mean, let's say for example,
MLS won't. MLS won't do that.
Yeah, but if I'm the Denton Diablos, right, and I enter USL 1 as Denton Diablos, there's going to be a draw, there's going to be a pull. But then if I go 3 mile down the road, wear green, and call myself the University of North Texas, who don't have a men's team, who was cut during the Title IX era, would that draw within the community more than the Denton Diablos? I think it probably would, man. So let's say you're in Austin, right? You can make a pro club to compete with Austin FC, or you can make the Texas Longhorns and compete in the USL. I think that would draw because that community and that emotionally moving logo and that branding that means Texas volleyball will draw crowds because they're the same uniform as the football team. I think that could.
Well, now you're talking about community-driven clubs or community-built clubs instead of, let's say, a franchise, a $300 million. That's different.
When people talk about college going pro, I think it looks like that.
Are there talks or plans about that? Anything?
I read one article that the current college system, there's going to be 15 to 20 teams enter the USL pyramid. I didn't see any detail. I didn't see any of the complexities addressed. And I didn't see any announcements from the ACC and the Big East and the NCAA that they were going to sanction the clubs leaving. And I think if that was real life, all of those things would happen.
Okay. So everyone, we're going to end the interview here. I'm actually going to probably have Stuart back soon because out of the guests that I've had, it was fun because I like when guests push back and I can push back and we can like go somewhere with the conversation rather than it just being one-sided. So my perspective is out there, yours is out, and then everyone watching this can make their own conclusions out of it.
I'll probably get hammered in the comments, but for the record, I'm
not necessarily
and always have been.
Not necessarily. I don't think we disagreed as much as it sounds like. It was a different perspectives, but it was like similar directions where we were going with it. And I mean, hopefully these conversations are more meant to make people think about the topic and talk about it. And probably in the comment section, we're going to see comments of people that are even smarter than us, that have a better idea or better vision. And that's my goal with this. But everyone, make sure to go follow Stuart. His handle is right below his head right there on X. And thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to drop a like before you go, and we'll have him back soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.